I'm going to go through 14 Asian languages that I've experienced over the past 40 years. Asian languages, basically I'm using it as a geographical classification. So as I said, we'll start off with the kanji-ken. Kanji in Japanese, hanzi. Basically those languages that wrote using Chinese characters, as you see here. So you have your Sinitic languages. So that's Standard Chinese, Han Chinese, and then all the variants, languages, dialects, whatever you prefer. Then Japonic languages and Korean, and then Vietnamese. And the Vietnamese made a lot of their own characters. Think about the Chinese languages. So those unfamiliar with this Chinese languages might wonder about mutual intelligibility between Mandarin, Standard Chinese, Putonghua, and other dialects. They tend to be very low when spoken, but once you get into it, you understand the sounds, then you begin to grasp a lot more of the conversations. The northern variations of Chinese tend to have greater mutual intelligibility, geographic reasons. South more mountainous, so you had more distinction between them. What percentage of Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese comes from Chinese? 60% of the total vocabulary, like if you go to unabridged dictionary and you have everything. When you actually look at the spoken word, one source said, yeah, in Japanese, only about 18%. I feel it's higher. Like whenever you use a verb that goes with suru, and we'll talk about that later, you're using basically something that originally came from the Chinese sounds. All right, so I have some examples here of that type of vocabulary. All right, so I have the Chinese on the left, like dianhua, and then Chinese diantuai, denhua, zhonghua. And sometimes you get a pretty big difference, but somebody talked about how Cantonese and the southern Chinese languages are going to, they're going to be closer because J becomes K in that area, right? So actually, the way that these are pronounced in Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese is basically, it's closer to the Cantonese and being dialects, etc., than it is to this modern day Standard Chinese. If you know how Chinese characters are phonetically transformed in these three languages, you can sometimes make educated guesses about new words you do not know, especially if it's a little bit complicated conversation. In Vietnamese, how do I say it? I might reference Japanese, I might reference Chinese in my head, and then use the Vietnamese pronunciation of it. So how learning one or more of these languages helps learning others? We see, for example, Japanese, Korean, okay, you have the vocabulary, the Chinese vocabulary. Importantly, you have the syntax, grammatical particles, and cultural similarities in polite speech, etc. You also have a strong one between Chinese and Vietnamese, but it's basically vocabulary and getting used to tones. And then Chinese, Japanese, you have vocabulary. No relative pronouns in Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, but they exist in Vietnamese, so we can form sentences in Vietnamese as we do in English, like that, which, who, with even dropping it, okay? This is a book I bought in Tokyo. We see that in the case of Chinese and Korean and Japanese, the only difference is where the verb is. Sure. Okay, so you have shi as a verb there. And then you have at the end Korean and Japanese. For Japanese and Korean, and normally in Chinese, you're going to do it this way. 这是我在东京买的书. You have to bring it before. So it happens with languages that don't use relative pronouns. Nepali has relative pronouns, but they do this, they'll say like, hijo aeko manche. Yesterday came man. So that has a lot more effect on syntax than where the verbs place. Okay, now I want to take a closer look at Japanese and Korean. I'm not going to go through all of this. I just want to point out that the first similarity, big similarity, is cultural, it's social, okay? You have three politeness levels. You have a plain form or informal, a normal, and a formal polite. You can argue that Korean has 7 levels, but it's still 2 lower levels, 3 middle levels, and 2 higher levels. So it's still 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice that the sentences get longer the more polite you get. It's not just verb inflection. You also have choice of nouns and pronouns. So you have a normal way to say rice, and you have a polite way to say rice, etc. The second example, I like to call them Japanese surudoshi, and then in Korean haradongsa. Take usually two Chinese characters together, and you add the verb to do after it. Chinese and Vietnamese do not inflect, no inflections at all. Therefore, a noun and a verb looks the same. Verbs in Japanese and Korean are highly inflective, as I'll show you. All right, and then the next example is a similarity in syntax, in the grammatical particles. Notice that both languages use this wa, de, o in Japanese, no, ni, etc., to show the function of the words in the sentence. And Korean mirrors it. They're almost one-to-one. In Japanese, you have ni, de, koko de, nai, nai, yaru. If it's an action verb, you use de. If it's koko ni, iru, and then you use ni here in that case. Korean does the same for eso, when it's an action verb. So many similarities. Another interesting similarity is languages vary according to how they use to be, whether they even use it or not, whether it was a predicate, adjective, etc. Like Russian, you don't use it, you know. You would just say the adjective. We're going to look at to be here, the existence or location or the nature of something. Okay, like ser and estar, things like that, okay, in Spanish. But what's interesting here is, first you have the nature of something, which is expressed by koriwa hon desu. This is a book, okay, and then for that you have imnida in Korean. Then you have existence, like aru, arimasu. And same in Korean, then you distinguish between the two. And all right, there's so many different levels you could write these verbs in, the plain, the mid-form, etc. The one difference is that Japanese distinguishes between animate and inanimate, you know, iru and aru, but Korean doesn't. Another interesting aspect, verb behavior, is that Japanese and Korean do not inflect to indicate number. They do not inflect for person. They do not indicate gender. So you say, okay, yeah, but so they don't inflect much. No, the general inflections that you can express in both languages here. So you have the present non-past indicative, the presumptive, the imperative, the past indicative, the past presumptive, the present progressive, the past progressive, the conditional, the potential, the causative, and passive. And you could think of a few more. Now, if you think that's not enough, every one of these has three forms or more. You have your plain form, and you have your mid form. Aru, arimasu, gozaimasu. Okay? So you have three of every one of these that look different to a beginner. Oh, this is a different way. So start adding up the numbers. You see, yeah, very highly inflective for verbs. What about writing? When I came to Japan, I started off with this column, the first one, and the last one there. Learned Japanese in Poland. Okay, I was studying their Slavic literature. But when I actually got here, then I started studying hard, and I entered Kyushu University to study in graduate school Chinese literature. And so I had to quickly learn how to read all three. But first I started off with the Fantis, you know, the traditional, and then the Japanese. You can see sometimes the Japanese form is closer to the traditional. Sometimes it's closer to the Chinese simplified, like in the case of country here, the last one. Then you might wonder, Japanese read Chinese and Chinese read Japanese. Well, it depends. Take a simple sentence like, what is this? There's a number of ways to say that, but if we say it in this way, 这是什么东西? That means also like, what is this in Chinese, right? Or これは何ですか? Okay, so if we write that question in Chinese like this, Japanese understand zero. They look at the characters, they know them, they use every character except the third and fourth, and also they might not understand if it's in simplified. I have the tradition below, but they're not going to understand that. What do you mean? Why are you talking about east and west? What does that have to do with the thing? You know, it makes no sense at all. And so a Chinese who doesn't know kana will understand zero, right? Reading, they can't understand. It's an alphabet. Okay, let's go to the next one. So I picked out a sentence here. Everything in red would not be understood if you've never studied Japanese. But this just happens to be a sentence where there's not kind of double meanings. It should be fairly well understood. This talking about Kyoto University, 100% comprehension. This one down here, Japanese will understand less than half of that. They have a problem with both. They can understand this better than this. They can understand traditional better than non-traditional. Okay, but they won't really understand the blue, I think. Let's switch to Vietnamese, where we have 3 major dialects. You have the northern, the southern, and central. Okay, the mutual intelligibility is high for the northern and southern for everybody to understand because of TV, media, and such. Variation is, of course, in vocabulary. The pronunciation-wise, okay, look at the right. You have GI, which is 1 letter. And then you have D, it doesn't have a mark through it. And then you have R. In the north, these are all the same sounds. Z, z, z. In the south, you have the GI and the D. These are both y, 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 y. So what time is it? North, bây giờ là mấy giờ rồi. In the south, bây giờ là mấy giờ rồi. In the north, I was traveling around motorcycle. There was zuza, zuza. Or in the south, yu ya. But the foreigners look and say, where's Dugia? D-U-G-I-A. Where's Dugia? Northern.
Có thêm nhiều kinh nghiệm mua sắm. Hôm nay tôi đang đứng ở cửa hàng Kelly Bùi Shop và chúng ta hãy cùng gặp gỡ nhà thiết kế Bùi Minh Trang nhé.
Thực ra thì trang phục phụ thuộc vào công việc của bạn nữa. Thường tại vì là một công việc của một designer thì nó...
Cảm ơn anh nha. Tối nay đúng 8 giờ 30 nha. Tính em làm gì chứ? Đi chơi là em đúng giờ lắm á. Đừng để em chờ nha. Con về nha. Bye bye nha.
Các bạn và anh chị, lúc con nhỏ cũng như cả cô bé khác, Linda đã mơ ước được làm một hoa hậu Việt Nam. Và mùa hè năm trước, mơ ước này đã trở thành sự thật. Một năm cũng đã trôi qua mau, nhưng em sẽ không bao giờ quên cái hôm đi thi năm trước, hồi hộp.
Now we're going to switch to Tai-Kadai language family. Tai-Kadai languages are spoken by about 93 million people in Southeast Asia. But 60% of them are speaking Thai. 91 languages in the family. You know, you have the Kadai, but 62 of those are in the Thai branch. Okay, so you have Thai with an H. Let's take a look at Thai and Lao. So, where are most of the Lao speakers? Thailand, not in Laos. So it's the native language of Isan, spoken by about 20 million people or so. In Thailand, they don't call it Lao, they call it Isan. And it's basically the same thing. It's political reasons. And 80% of all Lao speakers at 20 million. The mutual intelligibility between Thai and Lao is very high, but various reasons, some Thai people, they have a hard time understanding Lao or Isan. It could be lack of exposure, depending where they live, who they talk to, but it's mainly, I find, social and psychological issues. Almost all Lao speakers can understand Thai well. Thai is a more prestigious language than Lao in general, you know, in social linguistic point of view. If you go to Laos and you speak Thai, everybody will understand you. If you learn to read Thai and then learning to read Lao is quite easy. Thai is more complex. You have 44 consonant symbols that produce 21 initial consonants. Only 6 final sounds. R at the end of a syllable becomes an N. An S becomes a T. Sawadee krap. There's no T in that. And then you have 32 vowels. Thai makes it a little bit challenging compared to Lao, which has 28 vowels and 27 basic consonants. I have some phrases here, so you can see the similarities and differences. In the greeting, in Lao, you just always say, Sabai. But Sabai is kind of like, you know, how are you? If you want to say, how are you as a question, it's actually Sabai bo. Where it's in Thai, it's Sabai mai. For asking a question, for negative, bo, mai. It's changed in tone. Mai ben rai krap. Okay, no problem. It's a bo ben yang in Lao. Let's compare tone.
Ma, 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 ma,
Ma,
ma, ma, ma, ma, ma.
Ma, 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 ma.
Okay, so you can get tongue twisters based on tones.
ใครขายไข่ไก่ ไม้ใหม่ไม่ไหม้ไหม ชามเขียวคว่ำเช้า ชามขาวคว่ำค่ำ เช้าฟาดผัดฟักเย็นฟาดสีหมา หมามามามามามา
Mother's riding a horse.
妈妈骑马，马慢，妈妈骂马。
Mẹ mặt mẹt mặt mo, mẹ mai mua mười muốn nít mai muốn mười muốn nít, mẹ mai mắng mai mặt mo mặt mẹt mai mắng mẹ mặt mẹt mặt mo. Đêm đông đốt đèn đi đâu đấy, đi đãi đổ đen, đánh đổ đèn, léo đãi được đổ đèn. Đêm đông đốt đèn đi đâu đấy, đi đại đổ đèn, đánh đổ đèn, léo đãi được đổ đèn.
Now we'll just touch on Bahasa Melayu and Bahasa Indonesia. They are both standardized isolects of Malay, a major language in the Austronesian family. There are about 100 distinct Malay isolects, and these isolects are characterized by mixing Malaysian and Indonesian with vocabulary and syntax from local indigenous languages. Both are influenced by Sanskrit. You can find words like in Nepali and Hindi that you also have in these languages. The mutual intelligibility is very high, but it's easier for an Indonesian to understand Malay than a Malay to understand Indonesian, I would say. A lot of people say, oh yeah, Malay, Indonesian, such an easy language. They don't have any tense. Chinese, Thai, Lao, they don't have any tense. Are they easy languages? Yeah, but actually what happens when you're studying these languages, you have to know what the root is. But the thing nowadays, you have your phone and it just finds them. But if you're using a paper dictionary, you have to know the root. There are a lot of false cognates, as you see here, and most people are aware of those false cognates, I would say. Time expressions, they often switch. They can say either way, but like Malaysia, pagi besok, and Indonesia, besok pagi. Okay, you just switch the order. In these slides, I use them once to discuss how you express tense and aspect, you know, what happened already, or the past and the future, etc. Here, I just want you to look at the red part. The red part is the difference between the two languages to say the sentence that you see in English. And so like the second one is kind of a long sentence, isn't it? But you only have two words that are different in those sentences, okay? And then continuing here, the same thing. So this last night when I passed by, malam tadi, here you say tadi malam, okay? Ketika and not bila for when I pass. So yeah, they're very close. So we'll move on to the next area of languages. One of my favorite because I fell in love with the Himalayas. And so I'm telling you from lots and lots of experience that the most useful language in the Himalayas, number one, Nepali, and then Tibetan and Tibetic languages, mainly Tamang, Sherpa, Gurung, Ladakhi, and Balti. For example, that was last year in February, minus 20 degrees, in front of Mount Everest over there, the Gokyo Lakes. This is August one summer in front of Annapurna. That was this January, December in front of Mardi Himal, near the Annapurna region. Yeah, that's me. Okay, so this Tibetic languages are a cluster of Tibeto-Burman languages that come from Old Tibet, all right? And they're spoken in a wide area of Central Asia. So you see here the Tibetan Plateau, Balistan, Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, also Arunachal Pradesh. Tibetan, this is how you write Tibetan. I believe besides Japanese and Chinese, it's the hardest language to write and read because they haven't changed it over a couple thousand years. So if you're just saying Tashidile, which is a greeting or... Okay, so Tibetan spelling makes English and French look really easy. You have your consonants over here. They also stack, okay? They join together, make new consonants together like ka and kra, but they change their pronunciation. It's a nightmare. I have a textbook which spends 130 pages explaining the pronunciation of the alphabet. Possible combination. I think Japanese is harder to write than Chinese. That's a long discussion. Third, I would say Tibetan. Fourth, Thai. The first three worldwide, okay? Then after that, we're talking about the languages I'm addressing here. The simplest, definitely Indonesian Malay. It's very phonetic. I put Hindi and Nepali at second place. What about Korean? No, I'd say it's more difficult than Hindi and Nepali to write. So, looking at Tibetic languages, if you see Lhasa over here, that's a standard dialect, and that's what you should learn, okay, Utsang. Because it's a prestige language, and any monk is going to understand you, and people want to speak this language. Okay, so this is from 1984, my first trip to Tibet. And I have a Sony camera, back then it's this big. It just came out. I'm there with this big Sony camera. They've never seen that. Most of them had never seen an European before. So get the reactions. With two Germans. So looking at me, I got the camera. Okay, there are more than 1,000 people following me now. Central Lhasa. Wait a second, lift the camera up. The German is shooting. You get higher, you can. There, you see? The whole Central Lhasa was following because I had dropping around 2 Tibetan girls. That was Tashidile. This is a high plateau, 5,000 meters. Okay. Then I'll go on to talk about Tamang and such. So Tamang is actually a cluster of dialects, and 5% of the population of Nepal is Tamang. If you learn Tamang and Tibetan, it helps with the other languages spoken in that group. It's very hard to find materials to study Tamang, so you get like master's and PhD theses and academic papers you have to use, but it's not like they're teaching you a phrase book, you know. You're getting complicated sentences. And then you have to see what dialect they're focusing on and learn to distinguish between the dialects. And my main teacher is Sonima. She's one of my students here. I have a couple of Tamang-speaking students. And then for Sherpas live mainly in the Solokhumbu area where Mount Everest is, and also in neighboring Sikkim, which is actually India. And the Ladakhi language is spoken in Ladakh, in Balti and Baltistan, which is now in Pakistan. Okay, so I have a long history with Ladakh and Baltistan. First was in 1985. So 1984 Tibet, in 1985 they went to the other side, to Nepal, to Ladakh, to Baltistan, etc. So here with a beard and such, about 25 years old. And this is more recent years. I've done 3 motorcycle trips. The last one, September, last month. I was driving around on the far right. I was taking a motorcycle tour Ladakh. And people love it when you try to speak Ladakhi. So this is in Baltistan. 1985. This is in Baltistan last month. This is Baltistan geographically. It's the last village in Nubra Valley of Ladakh. It's the only Balti-speaking village there. The rest are mixed between Ladakhi speaking and some other languages that are spoken in that area. Yes, they are Muslim. Then Nepali. Nepali has official status in Sikkim, Chhattisgarh Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram, Uttarakhand, the whole area. And I was also speaking a lot of Nepali while in Ladakh because Nepalis during August, September, they sort of off-season in Nepal, they go work in Ladakh and other places like that, run the hotels and such. Here we see the Indo-Aryan languages. So you have Hindi and Urdu here, and then you have Nepali, right? Himachalian over there. Look, you also have Romani, spoken in Europe now, right? The lexical similarity exists because they have extensive vocabulary from Sanskrit. First words are pronounced exactly the same. Gar, Sadak, Pani. The ones below, it's just a matter of whether you have the final sounds. So, Oj, Oja. Here are some phrases. You can see general greeting, same. Namaste, or more polite, Namaskar is the same. But how are you? Timilai kostocho. And aap kaise hain? Okay, so quite different. Mutual intelligibility. In Nepali, people watch a lot of films all their life in Hindi and on TV and such. They tend to understand it. Samajhte hain, magar bahut acha bolte nahi hai. They understand it, but they can't speak it well. The Hindi speakers, they consider Hindi a status language over Nepali. Now, again, Nepali is spoken in many, many, many areas of India in the northeast. It is the main language of Sikkim, Darjeeling, etc., etc. Okay, the whole area there, which used to be Nepal. So it's kind of political, social issue there too. So I was in Sikkim, which is a Nepali-speaking region. I went into a phone store and I started speaking Nepali, and the girl went, and the other 2 girls were laughing. She's working there, but she doesn't speak Nepali. And it's not that hard to learn. A polyglot speak Hindi well. I expect in 1 month you're fluent in Nepali. Then last, Bengali. I haven't studied Bengali very much, but when I was trekking, December, January this year, a lot of Bengalis around, at the end of the year. So I was studying while I was trekking. I was teaching them Nepali. Bengali, and they were teaching me Bengali. Grammar and such, Bengali is the simplest, has the least inflections and verbs, etc. Hindi has gender, right? But Nepali, all inanimate words are male, okay? But Nepali verbs are much more complicated. Okay, there are many more inflections. And that's it. Dhanyabad, sheshe, arigato, tuchiche, on and on. Thank you.
If you're passionate about languages and cultures, head over to polyglotdreams.com, where you'll find my memoir, A Life in 30 Languages. It's available in multiple languages, including dual language editions and versions with audio narration, perfect for learners who want to combine reading and listening for deeper study. In this memoir, I share my adventures in 99 countries to the date I wrote the book, along with insights on how to learn languages best, drawn from my own experiences and research as a professor of cross-cultural management. Whether you're a polyglot, a language learner, or simply curious about the world, it's a resource to inspire and inform. So don't forget to visit Polyglot Dreams, the link is in the description, to explore the memoir and expand your language horizon.